people who play my instrument are a lot of jazz saxophonists.
Okay.
So people, my influences are Hank Mobley, Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, Gerald Albright, Kirk Whalum, um, Melissa Aldana, Joshua Redman. There's a lot of, I can go on and on and on and on with the list of.
So if you just said Coltrane, it'd been on anyway.
Right, right.
You just said Coltrane, we'll stop.
Yeah, so that's like my big influence, throughout my history. I started playing alto sax, which is the smaller one. And then this is tenor, right? And so all my favorite players are tenor because it matches the male voice a little bit better.
Okay.
So I sing everything I play.
Okay.
Right. So like if I do a little.
Please, absolutely, please. This is please.
Like it matches the male voice. So. Jazz kind of is like it's first of all it's our music.
Okay.
It's written and created by black people, right, of African descent. But it gives the player, the user, the ability to express themselves to the nth degree, and it's a never-ending journey. You never stop. You're always trying to achieve the goal. That's the big reason why Coltrane is one of my biggest influences because he was just. There's 24 hours in a day, but Coltrane practiced 25, 26.
So he outshined.
Right, and he achieved so much in such a little time that he was here on Earth. So it's big influences. Saxophone, I can go on and on about it.
So him and Miles, is the comparison for the work ethic. Him and Miles, they mirrored each other. Him and Miles.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they were. One thing that you learned from them, not just as just the music side, but how to be people. They struggled with their own
internally, of course, like all artists do.
Right. And they struggled with their own things, but they learned how to overcome those things and channel it in a way that was positive and channel it in a way that could, really push themselves.
To sustain them for whatever they were going through, basically, all of the odysseys of life and journeys. And you can tell pretty much any great artist of substance, they journey with their music, take you on a journey with their instrument.
Yeah,
and everything. So you think that has a lot to do with their success and their authenticity?
Yes, absolutely. I think anytime, as all musicians, doesn't matter what genre you're trying to play, whether it's country, gospel, R&B, soul. Ethereal. We're all trying to express ourselves, and in order to express yourself, you got to be, one with your instrument, and to a certain extent.
Okay,
if that makes sense. So,
yeah.
Passions. It's all of our passions.
And I tell you that passion with anything. It's 101 of anything and everything, basically.
Yeah.
For my attitude, it is.
Yeah, of course.
And everything, because without true passion for whatever instrument you want to choose, in a job or profession, you gotta have passion.
Yeah.
If not, it's not going to work. You might get by, but it's not really going to work for you.
Right. Passion plus work ethic goes a long way. Passion, keeps the fire going, but discipline and consistency. Keeps you in the door, keeps you in the room where it happens.
Okay.
And that's what I learned from a lot of these people I look up to.
Being a military brat,
yeah.
How was it to concentrate on your instrument, on your playing, on your craft when you're jumping around and everything? How hard was that?
So, of course, living in different areas, because I started in Italy, right? And when you live overseas, you live on military bases. Yeah. So the cool thing about that is you get to meet other kids who are just like you or very similar, stories like you, moving around. I had a lot of people who moved around way more than I did, or you just always moving around. And so, it was cool because a lot of the people who I started the band with, they're your friends, it just starts off as a hobby. A lot of kids these days are into video games or being online or watching social media, that kind of thing, right? It started out as a hobby, and I didn't get serious until like 7th, 8th grade, when my band director said, if you wanted to get if you wanted to be good on your instrument, listen to people. And so the first tune that I heard was Coltrane's "In a Sentimental Mood."
Okay.
And when I heard him play, I was like,
that one shot him through the roof right there. That shot him through.
Yeah. And I heard him play that, and I was like, man, and I was playing alto. And the thing about the saxophone specifically is that there's a lot of different tones, just like how everybody has a different voice, right? Whitney Houston sounds different from Anita Baker, right? Michael McDonald sounds different from Kenny Loggins, right? The tenor saxophone, though two people may play the same instrument, Lester Young sounds way different than Coltrane.
Okay.
And Johnny Hodges sounds different than Charlie Parker, right? There's different tones. And so, why am I speaking all that? It's
because the frequencies of the frequencies are individual. A lot of people don't realize that with music, frequencies are individual.
Yeah.
And they're attached to who they're attached to.
Right.
And then that's what you represent. Because then you found your frequency to work with, and you don't stray away from that. And that's what makes everybody individual.
Right. So I got to be with kids who were kind of similar, like-minded, but I got real serious about it. 7th and 8th grade. That's when I was living in Georgia, and I was like, okay, like I would see on YouTube, you can Google Sonny Rollins and watch them play, and you could hear just like the brilliance of their sound, and like, of course, another thing about when I was watching these musicians, they're dressed very nice. They're upstanding looking musicians. They put on their suit. And not only do they look good, but they play good. They sound good, and then they're also just really nice people too. And so that was something that I knew that I kind of wanted to model after my life. And the cool thing that when I moved, I started in 6th grade, Italy, kept it going, moved to Georgia. When I stayed on Fort Benning, I had a lot of kids who looked like me there. Military is very diverse, but that was being in Georgia. It was really nice to have other kids who were similar, looking like me, and just continued playing. My brother was also into playing too. He played trumpet, so we would practice at the house. If we didn't want to do homework, we would just pull out their instrument.
Okay.
So that was one thing.
So you had to go to.
Yeah. So like we had, of course, there was math homework and all that stuff, reading English. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just put that down. I'm gonna just go, pick up the instrument. Of course, my dad would always play too.
Okay.
And so all of us, needed a way to kind of, express ourselves in one way or another. Okay. My dad would play. My mom, she doesn't sing professionally or anything like that, but she sings around the house. Music was always in the house, and so it never really hindered me moving around and stuff like that. My folks were always very supportive of both of us staying in band.
Okay.
When I came here, I was at Benton High School, proud graduate, go Tigers, and we did marching band. And that was the first time I ever did marching band and everything. Interesting experience, but
it's a lose-ended thing.
Yeah. But I definitely we stuck with it, and that's where I picked up the tenor sax. And through high school, where I started playing professionally, and started picking up gigs and playing for people's events and stuff like that. My mom would every single time we'd have people over, my mom would always say, "Can you play a song? Can you play a song?" Tell both me and my brother, "Can you play a song?" My brother would also play a little bit of piano too.
Okay.
So he would. Her favorite song for us to play was Misty. So my brother learned piano and everything, and I would play the melody and all that stuff. We used to be a duo back in the day called Rhythm and Time Duo. Okay. And that was, probably 10, 15 years plus, and all that. But he would play piano for for some of our gigs, and I'd play saxophone, and we try to make it. I always wanted to be, really good at what I did, and make that my passion. Okay. So
speaking of gigs, what's on your schedule next?
Yeah, so probably the big highlight is my band, the Daniel Scott Quintet. Sometimes we're known as the Quartet, but Quintet, that's 5-piece. Right now we're rolling with a 5-piece band. That's trumpet, sax, keyboard, bass, and drums. We're gonna be playing at the Highland Jazz Fest. Okay. That's later this year. I can pull up my calendar if I can pull that up.
Yeah, please, absolutely.
Yeah, so for putting out my plugs out there, Highland Jazz Fest is gonna be September 13th in the Columbia Park. Right, so you'll be able to catch. There's gonna be a lot of other bands local to Shreveport, local to the area. But my band will be playing. We're waiting to hear about what slot we're gonna have and all that stuff, the timeline. But it's out, or I think it's a free event. So definitely go online and check that out.
So please let me know. Any information. I'll make sure I get it back out there to the community when it comes up. So we have to support our musicians. We have to support our artists. Yeah. Because I hate using the word struggling artists, but you never know. Sometimes artists do struggle. Yeah. So we need to be very very careful. We need to recognize that, and that's why one of the reasons why I'm so happy to have you here. Yeah. Getting back to a little bit your bio, the transition to Shreveport. Yeah. How difficult it was for your craft, honing your skills, finding a place where you can nurture your skills, finding a place where you can showcase your talents. Yeah. What are some of the tribulations that you had since being here?
Well, I'm kind of blessed to say that I didn't have any like true struggles to go through. I mean, you know, as any artist is, you know, trying to make a name for themselves, I'm very grateful to have had developed great friendships with local musicians. I'd like to shout out a few. Winston Hall and Chris Allen gave me, you know, they had a jazz camp. That was probably one of the first summers that I was here in Shreveport. They hosted it at LSUS, and they came down and it was like 3 days of great jazz music for students to come in, and they also play at Two Johns, and they were like, you know, they obviously must have liked what I was playing at the camp. I was young, you know, I couldn't play as much as I could now, but they were like, hey, we're gonna give you a shot. Come on out and come sit in with us at Two Johns. And I got my start, you know, just kind of sitting in with those two guys, and they were real big jazz musicians as well. And they basically gave me my start, and I've been playing at Two Johns for ever since then. So, and then you know, there's other people who I've, you know, like Evan McCormick, Ted Beagley, my band directors. Oh, probably one of the most important opportunities that I've gotten to have when I was young, or when I first moved here, was I got to take part in the Talented Music Program, TAPS as they call it.
Okay.
Larry Pearson was my teacher. First it was Bob Maynard, then Larry Pearson kind of took over. But Larry Pearson was one who kind of showed me a lot about the theory behind music, and you know, how to kind of, you know, really get into this jazz thing. Also Kenny Alderman, I took lessons with him prior to taking lessons with Larry. So Kenny Alderman, Evan McCormick, Ted Beagley, Larry Pearson. I want to make sure I get all those names out because they're very important to my growth, not only as a musician but as a person as well. Okay. And I had the opportunity to, being a part of the TAPS program, I had the opportunity with my brother and to lead a small ensemble, the Talented Arts Jazz Band. And that band got to go to New York and play in the New York City Jazz Festival. That was 2018. They did it a year prior, 2017. I wasn't a part of that one, but the following year I got to act as student director alongside with Larry Pearson and Evan McCormick. And we put together some tunes, and we got to go all the way up to New York City and play in the New York City Jazz Festival on the Apollo stage.
See,
so yeah.
People, understand, music is a universal language.
Yeah,
we know that.
Yeah. But
music is also a catalyst for some serious travel.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I never would have thought that. So when I first moved to Louisiana, the one thing that I did notice about Northwest Louisiana is that the jazz scene, or at least the jazz culture, isn't as big, maybe as some would say, as in the South. Okay. And I'm saying that as a musician, as somebody who's lived in Shreveport, Louisiana, and that's something that I've been trying to change, or as we're currently doing, trying to make more changes and bring that more live up here. Okay. Of course, you have bands like Alter Ego, Eddie Spencer, absolutely killing it. Phenomenal. And you know, I've gotten to meet him. I've gotten to meet, you know, artists like Dirty Red, Dorsey Summerfield. Okay. You know, just people who are making the music, try to make it happen up here. And you know, I'm grateful to call these people my friends and colleagues. Okay. And you know, just work alongside with them, just trying to spread the awareness. And I'm glad that you guys are doing stuff like this to highlight artists. You know, not highlight artists of our nature. Correct. And you know, bring that out to the forefront. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Anything else do we have that you have to say to the young inspiring artists?
Of course, you know, if you're passionate about something, surround yourself with like-minded individuals that can nurture you and support you. I wouldn't be where I am today without my family. I wouldn't be where I am today without my friends. If you have something that you're passionate about, if it's music, you know, if it's art making, if it's photography, if it's podcasting, get around the people who will be there to support you, because you know, it's not just Daniel Scott Sax. There's a whole other side of the story that you got a lot of people don't see behind the sides. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Daniel Scott Sax. Yeah. Please take us out for what we're going to be doing. Yeah. We're going to continue the segment after this.
Let's see here.
Daniel Scott Sax. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Well, Ark-la-tex, that's another segment of AG Entertainment. So glad you stopped by. Have a blessed day. Namaste.